Yeah, we're not wasting time on preambles for that one. What's going on, people? This is the first of our official 2024 year-end wraps. Kristen and Luke joined me last week for the top 10 best movies of the decade so far, and now we're ready to begin. It's funny, I haven't done one of these in a while. I believe the last one of these live streams that I did was when I still had Chris on back in 2021, because we just sat through so many disappointing releases that year. Little did we know that that was basically what was going to queue us up for the rest of the decade. But we are here to cover the worst of a year that, frankly, will go down in infamy for all the wrong reasons. The year of 2024, I can say personally right now, the worst year of my life, so much so that it has literally actually made me like reconsider almost everything in my life going into 2025, for the better, I will say. But yeah, shit year deserves to have some shit movies shouted out, and boy, did we have some shit movies this year. We're going around the round table. Luke and Kristen are back. Luke, just give us some of your general thoughts about some of the bad that 2024 had to offer.
I think it wasn't so much as bad as much as there wasn't much, like, period. Like, everything got moved or because of the strikes or for whatever reasons. My personal year wasn't as bad as yours, though. Writing your thesis in 1 month will elevate the ego a little bit. But
for sure.
Movies, the good was really good, but I would have liked to have more of that good. But next year looks to be dialing it up. Well, this year already.
This year. Well, this year and next year, honestly. 25 and 26. Well. Yeah, thankfully, it seems like we have a full movie slate this year. No delays. I saw Den of Thieves 2 last night. I'm seeing Last Showgirl after we wrap this. Already this year seems to be much, much more promising than last year. But, yeah, no, I'm sorry, but when last year kicked off with Night Swim, that should have told you everything you needed to know about this year. Yeah, remember that fucking movie? Yeah. Kristen, some of your thoughts on the year of movies in 2024 and some of the worst that it had to offer.
I think 2024 was really good. I think, yes, I did see some bad. And like what Luke said, if the good was good and the bad was bad. And, the good thing about my list, I was looking at this, I only went to the theater maybe twice to see the movies that I'm going to mention here today in theaters. The problem is what we've seen time and time again. It's the streaming films that don't land. And most, like, looking at these are some like minor films that I just didn't like. And, there was hype. So like, I'm not going to mention like one of them. One of them is liked by a lot of like the Instagram cinephiles. And then there's like the critics that also, like, you could put in me that also didn't like it, that had their same thoughts about this one film. And then it's just like, the basic stuff that you expected to be bad,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, no, it's funny. I actually think I know exactly which movie that it is that you're talking about. But it's funny because I'm going to have another one of those movies on my list as well that the critics absolutely love, that I was just like, yeah, this is just not working for me at all. Mac, good to have you back on the channel, first and foremost. It's been a while since we've had you on. Your thoughts on the year of 2024 and some of the worst that it had to offer. Like I said, you have given us some of the greatest movie roasts of all time, going all the way back to last year when we had you, Dantre, and Onyolo on for the roast of Madam Web, which was still one of the funniest episodes that I think I produced in 2024. Your thoughts on some of the worst that 2024 had to offer.
I'd say for 2024, it was kind of like, personally, it was awesome for me. I got to go to WrestleMania, like Pop the Question, which is pretty cool. So a lot of good.
Sir. Congratulations! Officially getting hitched.
Yes. But for movie-wise, man, I'd say last year was a generational run for shit movies. And like, this is only once in a lifetime. When you have movies, like we talked about before the show of, how you said you don't want to like waste your time seeing movies are going to be bad. For me, if I know it's going to be bad, I need to witness this. I need to say it was there. It's like the people be like, were you there when like Toys R Us closed? You were in the store there. You were in the store when it closed. Were you there when like Toontown shut down, your OG one shut down? You need to be there when it happens. So you need to go to these are canon events. These bad movies we're talking about, these are all our canon events that we saw last year. That's going to have a ripple effect going into the next 2 years, because the next 2 years are looking promising for films. One of my anticipated films this year is Fantastic Four. Will it be a good film, or will it join the ranks of the other bad Fantastic Four movies? These films that came out and we're talking about today. These films might change lives for good and for bad. And I cannot wait to talk about my list because I have some lists of people like, yeah, that makes sense. And I got to talking about people might be too soft on some of these movies.
I love it. It's everything that I would have expected. Yeah. To bounce off that point, it's exactly it. I'm at a point now where I'm like, yeah, like, I'm sorry, but I've sat through enough bad Sony Marvel movies that are about Spider-Man villains but not having Spider-Man in them. I love how it took people fucking how long? What was it? 6 years to realize that the Venom movies were bad. You know, despite the fact that the first one made $1 billion, which is the whole reason why we got movies like Morbius and Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter. We were thankfully spared of that 2 years ago now. But yeah, it's just a thing of where it's like, I'm really, again, Luke, you also mentioned this before, where it's like you made the joke of it's like you couldn't pay me to watch the Crow remake, or
No, you could with a decent enough amount.
I screwed that up. It's like I wouldn't watch the Crow remake for free. It's like this thing of where it's like, it's not an issue of money now, it's just an issue of time. And I'm like, I know that like if I'm gonna spend my time watching this stuff, I want to at least enjoy it. And it wouldn't be one thing if it was a so bad it's good thing. Like, Mac, I understand where you're coming from as far as these movies are canon events. These movies need to be witnessed for sure. But I'm just at a point now where I'm like, I know that like Hollywood is not hopped up on enough drugs to make the bad movies that are so bad that they're enjoyable like they used to do back in the day. You know, now they're too self-aware. Now they're trying to make movies that are bad for memes and clicks. And that just sucks a lot of the fun out of it. You know, it really does. So for me, you're going to see a lot of entries on my list that you might question mark and be like, huh? Was that bad? And so that's why, again, I'm not doing it as a caveat, but a little bit of a caveat where I'm like, these are the movies that just let me down. The movies that, again, I'd like to think that I don't have a lot of expectations going into years anymore because I prefer to just, like, let the movies excite me as it is. But these are the movies that I would say, specifically near the bottom of the list, I had some modicum of expectation for, and they just kind of let me down for different and various assorted reasons. I'll get into that once I get into my list. Before we start this, does anybody have any dishonorable mentions that they want to rattle off?
I can start. So I was going through my list and I realized I didn't put this on there. Joker 2, Electric Boogaloo, a sequel that I said that should not have existed. I knew this movie was just bad omens when my theater showing, within the first 20 minutes, the projector froze and they had to re-rack the film 10 minutes. So I had to see them try to escape Arkham Asylum, and I witnessed probably the most awkward sex scene of 2024. And then I had an ending which I questioned myself, like, what the fuck did I just watch? So shout out to Joker Foe. Todd Phillips, you know, I know people are like, oh, he did this on purpose. Like, nope, I don't think he did this on purpose. I think he thought he was going to do it, and someone should have taken the damn spatula away from him.
Yeah. Joker 2 is a masterpiece, but we could debate that later. Yes, I'm one of those guys. What's it called? Is that it?
Yes, it is that. I don't get. That's the only film I really forgot to talk about, and yeah, it's like one of my dishonorable mentions, I'd say.
Got it. Kristen, any dishonorable mentions?
Oh yes, I have a list. All right, so starting off, we're gonna say Miller's Girl, which was the Jenna Ortega film. That was really bad. Role Play, which is the Kaylee Cuoco and Daniel. Whatchamacallit? I forgot how you say his last name. Daniel.
What is it?
How do you say it? It's
David Oyelowo.
Yes, thank you. That film, it was the MGM Amazon release. Not much to expect from that. Damsel, which is the Millie Bobby Brown movie with the dragon. Oh god, that was so stupid. Night of the Harvest, which is a film Mac and I got to review for our podcast. Stress Positions, which is a film nobody has heard of or saw, but it's by Theda Hamill, and it has the worst people you got to deal with during COVID-19, and then they got turned into a film, and I just was like, why was this at Sundance? This was awful. Hot Frosty, the Netflix snowman movie. This is the film I kind of was mentioning that critics also, I was agreeing with the critics, but the Instagram cinephile community really liked it, and that was Drive Away Dolls.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's the one. So like I said, Joker. That's the other thing I was expecting for everybody's dishonorable mentions was everybody to have the one movie that I actually
No,
kind of
I'm
really
gonna
love.
I'm letting Joker 2 slide on this
Yeah,
one.
'cause
It's more of a disappointing watch.
Yeah, because I love Joker 2 and I love Drive Away Dolls. I had an absolute blast watching that movie.
Mother of the Bride, which is the latest Mark Waters film. Mark Waters is not doing well. I think He's All That is worse, but Mother of the Bride is pretty bad. Spellbound, the worst animated film I saw this year with Rachel Ziegler and Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem. And then finally, I have a funny story with this. Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Oh, God.
You watched
You
that?
actually watched that.
Well,
What? I feel like the better question is, somebody watched that?
I did
It's
because
hilarious.
I was going on my vacation with my husband and tired, and there's nothing good. Like all the options, watch the movies. Like there was like a limited amount, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll just watch Harold and the Purple Crayon. I fell asleep. That tells you something. And then I was like, all right, I need to still continue to witness how bad it is. So I woke up once the film was over, and then I was like, oh God, I want to watch this film again to see how bad it was. Because my husband wasn't listening to the audio. He was watching me watch the film.
Oh, a classic case.
And so I rewatched Harold on the plane. And then I fell asleep again. We got to our destination. And then I was like, all right, I have 30 minutes left of the film. I need to go back and witness what the hell happened to this crayon. In the performance, that is Zachary Levi. And being a child adult in the worst way possible, wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And I was just like, all right, let's see how this ends. And I watched it not once, but 3 times and fell asleep both of those times.
Oh, man. It reminds me of when I tried to watch Brawl in Cell Block 99 back in 2017. And every time I tried to watch it, I fell asleep during it. And then I was just like, fuck it. It's just not meant to be. Granted, I was traveling like throughout Spain throughout it, but yeah, it was just not meant to be, and that was just a truly brutal, miserable movie to watch anyway. So it didn't even add up too much. But yeah, Harold and the Purple Crayon, a movie that truly, again, you had to question the decision making that went into the making of that movie. Where it's like, yes, we were going to make a Harold and the Purple Crayon adaptation, but we're going to make Harold an adult interacting with other kids. What could possibly go wrong about that?
Abducting kids.
That too.
And then the funniest thing about this movie is that there's CGI like ice creams that they put in the film, and then they go, let's go get some ice cream. And then they get real ice cream. I was like, nobody pointed this out. You guys are going to include CGI ice cream.
You can only pick up on this after the third viewing.
Oh, this is see, this is the thing. I love that we can still like witness Hollywood stupidity in real time, rather than them just making fools of themselves in the tabloids as well. Oh man, any other ones, or that was the big one?
Those are the big ones. Oh, and Argyle. Did I mention Argyle?
You did not mention Argyle.
Argyle. I was going to include it in my top 10, but I was just like, no, I have some other really bad ones.
All right.
Argyle
Wow.
was really close to making it at number 10.
Oh man, yeah. Now you got some shit on your list if Argyle didn't even make the top 10. God damn, I thought that was gonna be like a universal one. All right, Luke, going on to you. You got any dishonorable mentions?
I was going to mention 3 movies that were just good enough to miss out on the list. One is Under Paris. I think.
Oh yeah, the shark one.
That's as good a shark movie as you're gonna get these days. The ending is a question mark, but I enjoyed it. Venom: The Last Dance. I've been with these from the start. Like I enjoy the relationship between Tom Hardy with a modified voice enough to enjoy those movies. But let's get like a proper one in the MCU, please. And Trap, because if you don't enjoy Trap, like
Come on, that movie's good.
It's not a bad movie. I'm not saying it's a bad. I only watched 47 movies this year. So,
Oh, okay.
Like some of them, like these are 3-star movies. Like I enjoyed it. It wasn't great, but
Trap was
I
a
still
4.5 for me. I had a
Yeah.
blaster. That movie almost made top 10. If I hadn't seen Nosferatu and Brutalist, like that might have been in my top 10. I love that movie.
I love that. That was
Yeah.
so good.
Oh, I had an absolute blast. That was probably, now that I think about it, that was probably the most fun that I had in the theater this year. Just watch the audience just go off and react to all of the ridiculousness that happened in it. It was amazing. I only have 3.5 honorable mentions, dishonorable mentions. I'm gonna say I originally had The Bike Riders down low, but I'm like, I need to rewatch that movie. I was not a fan of Cuckoo at all, the Hunter Schafer, Dan Stevens movie. That was a movie that had a pretty promising trailer and premise, and then the reveal, its basic thing. The thing that I noticed about a lot of movies that I didn't like this year was a lot of them try to rely on technical gimmicks. Like Cuckoo had that stupid editing thing that it was doing whenever it tried to like do the sound barrier, and I'm like, oh, this is all this has going for it. Okay, the rest is just like another generic Escape the Asylum. Oh, mad scientist experimenting on people. One. I also was not a fan of Love Lies Bleeding. A lot of people love that movie. I thought it was pretty good for the most part. It was a standard crime thriller, centered around a lesbian relationship, and then the ending, I was just like,
yes,
what the fuck is going on?
We talked about
here?
that film
Yes,
together on here.
Yes, we did. I did enjoy the Jake Gyllenhaal Roadhouse movie. That wasn't that bad. I had a lot of fun with it. Jake definitely understood the assignment for sure. I think the biggest missed opportunity was we didn't see who Billy Magnuson's real evil father was. Godzilla vs. Kong: The New Empire was stupid, but like I knew exactly what I was getting in that movie, and like the best thing that movie did was just keeping the humans as separate from the actual monsters themselves. So I'm like, okay, so this shows that these movies are moving in the right direction, because we are almost getting to a point where we can just have the monsters in these movies and just not have the humans in it at all, except for maybe like some CBT commentary or something like that. But yeah, no. My only two real dishonorable mentions are Blink Twice and Twisters, honestly, which are two movies that I had, again, not a lot, but a decent amount of expectations going in for. I'm like, all right, it's Twisters. How badly can they screw it up? And then I'm like, oh, it's just boring.
No,
like,
the 5-star, 3-star movie.
5-star, 3-star movie for you, Luke.
I'll
for
keep
me,
reiterating
I
that.
was just like, all right, this is whatever. And like, you have a movie that's clearly being set up to a romance story. I'm like, look, I know that I hate Hollywood bullshit romance, but like, you're clearly setting this up for a romance. This isn't like a Pacific Rim situation where they're like kind of a little bit self-aware about it. I'm like, this movie's not self-aware about itself at all. And then they just like, oh, she's just like gonna go work for him now, but they're not gonna make out. It's like, you got Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones. Like, you know who your audience is. At least do that. And then Blink Twice, a movie that should have been one of the best of the year and then wasn't. And once again, relied on a goofy editing technique that was really cool for the first half. And then once the reveal came, it was just like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know. It was something that felt like it was building up to like this big reveal that really was actually very predictable. And it just didn't work out in the movie's favor at all. Like, at all. So, yeah, those are my dishonorable mentions. Like I said, not a whole lot of movies that, like, straight up disappointed me because there were a decent amount that I was able to get, like, some enjoyment out of for the most part. So, let's get started with these lists. We're going to do them similarly to how we did it last week, where we're each going to go round table style. We're going to run off 10 through 6, and then 5 through 2, and then we'll end with number 1. So, Max, starting with you, what is your 10 through 6? You're muted.
My bad. So my 10 to 6 to start. So number 10, I got Jackpot, the Paul Feig movie with Awkwafina and Juan Cena. I'm not a Paul Feig fan. It was a very kind of dumb comedy film, but I have it low because it was, it's whatever. Number 9 is a film where I was highly disappointed with. Killer's Game with Big Dave Bautista and Sophia Boutella. That was the one where he was the hitman and he had cancer, which I was really surprised. I was like, oh, I want to see this, and then I watched it on Peacock. Was very disappointed with it. Number 8, I got The Crow. I have it low on the list because it's just like a movie that's just, why, and just no one wanted another Crow movie. I think for years no one was like, no, I don't want this. Number 7, didn't really see this a lot of people's list. Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate. The sequel to Megamind. I love the first Megamind movie, and I'm like, oh, cool, sequel. Oh, you don't have the voice cast back? This is terrible animation. This is a spinoff to a TV series. Oh, we are 50 Shades of Fucked, my friend. So yeah, it will be 50 Shades of Fucked because this is a very, very bad movie, and I'd never want to watch it again. Number 6, I got Imaginary. I wrote that I wish I forgot about this film. This film wanted to be like the new kid on the block for the horror movies and had a very predictable plot twist and everything like that. It was really stupid. And yeah, that's my 10 through 6.
Oh my god, it's so funny because when you started saying Imaginary, I thought that we were going to talk about Imaginary Friends, the John Krasinski directed one with Ryan Reynolds.
Yes,
and then I realized, I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, there's the teddy bear and then Ryan Reynolds.
Well, I'm like, and then I had to remind myself, I'm like, oh my god, the Jeff Wadlow. This is how awful this year was. A Jeff Wadlow directed bad Blumhouse movie, which again, I had not a good movie, but I had an absolute blast watching Fantasy Island back in 2020, and I couldn't even be motivated to watch it. You know, granted, it came out while I was in school, and I was not watching movies in school while, that I had no interest in. But damn, yeah, a Jeff Wadlow bad Blumhouse movie is just bad. Not even bad good, just bad. So that's hilarious that I completely forgot that movie even existed until you.
They tried to make it. They tried to make it like what Megan was, when Megan was like a surprise hit with like an icon for a horror movie, and they're like, this teddy bear Chauncey's going to be the new kid on the block, and it absolutely like failed miserably.
Wanted to be included in the Blumhouse cinematic universe.
Yeah, it didn't
Teddy Bear and Megan come together.
Again, I have a thing where, again, the first movie that I see of the year sets the tone for the year. So, like I said, Megan set the tone for 2023, and I'll put it this way: Argyle, the first movie that I saw, new movie that I saw for 2024, set the tone for 2024. So let's hope. Here's hoping the Den of Thieves 2 sets the tone for 2025, because I actually really enjoyed that and had a good time with that. All right, Kristen, moving over to you. You're 10 through 6.
Well, Mac and I have the same number 10, and that is Jackpot, which is stars Awkwafina and John Cena. I will give them credit because they do have chemistry together, and I do think they can star in a film together. It's just Paul Feig's film did not work at all. The worst part about this is Machine Gun Kelly showing up, because I cannot stand that human being. And he has the worst cameo that I've seen. I think the jokes do not land, and Paul Feig, from directing the last film he did, I forgot what it was. Nobody cared for what Paul Feig directed the last time.
Wasn't the School for Good and Evil, the Netflix one that I've been seeing pop up, the Kerry Washington
nobody
one?
cared for that, and nobody cares for this. So that tells your thing about Paul Feig. I think most of his attention right now is on A Simple Favor 2, which I will have some
Wasn't he doing that Sydney Sweeney, Amanda Seyfried movie, The Housemaid?
He is, and unfortunately, I think his attention is going to go more towards that than the next A Simple Favor 2 sequel. Now, he had faith in this one where he was working and put his mind into that, and now his focus is on The Housemaid, and now I feel like he's going to forget the promotion of A Simple Favor 2. But we'll see how that turns out because of all the Blake Lively controversy. Will we ever see it? I don't know. But at least I have some hope for The Housemaid. I'm excited to read the book and check out the film. They are filming in my hometown, so shout out to that. So hopefully we get some nice shots of where I grew up. Number 9, as my phone just went black for a second. There we go. The Deliverance, Lee Daniels. Again, why did Lee Daniels direct this? I don't know. With this film, it has a great cast. You know, Glenn Close, I can't see the cast list on here. Angelina Ellis Taylor, Monique. What happened here? And then Netflix was like, we're going to put this out in theaters. Why did you put this out in theaters? There's a reason why I didn't go out. Nobody went out of their way to go see this in a theater. And for an ending that is so laughably bad that it's insane, that it's like a wannabe exorcism film, and then it is, and then having it also be a film that ties deeply with its religious themes, it just comes out to be so corny and silly. It's just like, what?
I think the thing that threw me off the most about this movie was I'm like, this looks like a Tyler Perry movie, and then I saw, I'm like, wait, Lee Daniels directing? What is going on here?
I was
not the Tyler Perry comparison. That's diabolical.
It looks like subject matter wise. I'll say, other than aesthetic, it was subject matter wise that really threw me for a loop. Because I'm like, I'm like, wait, is this not a Tyler Perry movie? And then it wasn't. I'm like, oh god.
Alrighty, then coming in at number 8, Killer Heat, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Shailene Woodley, and Richard Madden movie. This is a film that could have at least been a solid crime thriller where Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a detective. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I want him to succeed, but then starring in Beverly Hills Cop remake, whatever, sequel, reboot, whatever you want to call it, and then going into Killer Heat, that's bad signs right there for 2 bad movies back to back. And Shailene Woodley and Joseph Gordon-Levitt have worked together in the past. Why did they team up for this film? Everybody just signed on to this film just to go on a vacation, because the location for this film is beautiful, but the way this mystery plays out, it is so silly. It is so much like a Days of Our Lives, soap opera, vibes. It's silly. It's so bad. A book adaptation that should not have been. And yeah, simple as that. Number 7 on my end is Night Swim. There we go, talking
There
and
you
bringing it up.
go. There you
This
go.
is one of the worst horror movies I have seen. And for a horrifying pool, like I love going into a pool and relaxing. I shouldn't have to think about a creature that's going to come in or some ghost dimension, whatever. It is so silly and stupid. And none of the, like I said, none of the acting is good here, but I don't know. Wyatt Russell, what are you doing here? And then number 6, we're going to go back to back with Christmas, but starting off with the worst Christmas movie, Dear Santa, Bob Farley. We had Peter Farley directing Ricky Stenicki, which I didn't think was that bad of a film. But then we got Bob Farley coming in and saying, hold on, I got the bad movie of the year. And that is Dear Santa with Jack Black. And oh man, this is a movie that did not know when it wants to be. It's a teen, like youth comedy, but then also Christmas film. And then it's a raunchy, wannabe R-rated film. It doesn't work with any of the meshes at all. Not good. I was really hoping at least Jack Black to be good, but I feel like Jack Black has been phoning it in a lot lately, and that's saying a lot. He's been doing so many films. People like him. I get it, but I feel like he's not been his best in a while.
Yeah, no, I think it's safe to say, unfortunately, that Jack Black's best days are behind him. Like, he's still great with the voiceovers. He still proved that he had it with Bowser. But yeah, the live action roles, yeah, and Minecraft doesn't look to be.
Yeah, Minecraft does not look good. Yeah. I will at least give him credit. I'm excited to see what he does with Anaconda with Paul Rudd. At least I hope that is a good popcorn flick. But right now with Jack Black's career, I'm not excited to watch him anymore or have the eager to go check out a film. This was just like, all right, I'm sitting on the couch. I'm kind of bored. I want to watch something new, and this was the only option I had. And it should have been at least a better watch. There was zero promotion for this film too, so so your signs for Paramount.
Remember when Kung Fu Panda came out 16 years ago? Or no, this year it's 17 years ago.
Yes.
I was there.
Oh man, we all were.
We all were there.
What a better time! What a better time for movies it was. Oh man, yeah, I haven't seen any of literally. I think this breaks the record, Kristen Mac, between both of your guys, 10 through 6. I haven't seen any of these movies. I'm like, wow, I knew I was. It's good to know that Hollywood can still churn out just as much crap as I would expect them to. Because I remember there was a time when I would have seen all of these movies. Oh man, all right, Luke, go to your 10 through 6. What do you got?
Yeah, so I followed by Dom's example. I did not watch. I just didn't watch movies that I knew were going to be bad or didn't interest me at all. So. Some of these are just okay or mediocre or disappointing. So at number 10, I have Roadhouse. I have not seen the original. I think I started it, but then I had to go do something and then never finished it. It was enjoyable enough. Conor McGregor is not a great actor, but luckily Jake Gyllenhaal is. There was some decent little fight sequences. Yeah, it's a fine, mediocre 3-star movie. At number 9, bit more controversial. I knew I was going to be disappointed as soon as everyone started calling this the scariest movie ever made. That's Longlegs, unfortunately. I did not think it was really anything special. People kept hyping up Osgood Perkins. I'm like, well, he made Gretel and Hansel. Like, I'm supposed to be impressed by that. Nicolas Cage was I don't know if he was good, but he was certainly something. And people were like, oh my God, we're hiding his face. We're hiding his face.
Classic Cage.
And then he looks like, I don't know, a pig or something. I was just not impressed by that one. At number 8, I have Kung Fu Panda 4. As an avid Kung Fu Panda enjoyer, this was not my Kung Fu Panda. It lacked all of the energy of the original trilogy. It lacked all the characters from the original trilogy other than like Tai Lung, conveniently enough, and they didn't even use him that well. Will we get a 5th one? Who knows? But they better have the Furious 5 back, because those are always some of the best parts of the movie. What are we at? Number 7 is Immaculate. Dom hyped up the ending for this one. I was again disappointed by what that was.
I was about to say, between you and Mac hating on Joker 2, the masterpiece of the year, man, this is a tough one.
for the most part, I thought it was okay. Nun-oriented horror movie. I've seen enough of those. My distaste for the Conjuring adjacent franchise is known enough. But Sydney Sweeney was great. The ending was, again, Dom hyped it up to all hell, and it was good, but I was expecting something more wild. And at number 6, I have Love Lies Bleeding. Look, I'm all for an artsy movie, but when you just turn into a giant for no reason with no indication, like of you didn't earn it. It comes out of nowhere. I'm like, no, I'm just tuning out of that movie, and I didn't really enjoy the rest of the movie that much. Yeah, and that's number 6.
Other than Immaculate, which I'll just say right now you're wrong on. I'm just kidding. Like I will fully admit, with my experience with Immaculate was one where I saw that on some substances and I just had an absolute blast through that movie. And then the ending happened, specifically like the ending shot, and I was just like, my jaw was on the floor. But it is, wow, it's been almost a year since I've seen that. That's crazy. Glad to see that somebody else felt the same way that I did with Love Lies Bleeding. All right. Time to go into my list. Like I said, we're getting controversial. Like I said, because I think collectively, I've seen all the movies on Luke's list so far, except for Kung Fu Panda 4, because that one I'm just like, yeah, no, these extended DreamWorks, because I also wasn't even that big of a fan of Kung Fu Panda 3, one of the few DreamWorks trilogies that just did not hit it with the third one.
I forgot Kung Fu Panda even came out this year.
Yeah, me too.
I know.
My sister almost went to go see the film. My sister almost went to go see the film because she wanted one of the popcorn buckets because she liked the popcorn buckets.
Man,
and
those stupid popcorn buckets tried to
yeah, and then we ended up never going to see it. So there was a reason why we just never went to go see it. And
guys, it's so much worse than that. This movie opened the weekend after Dune 2.
Yeah.
There's a reason why nobody saw it. I'm just gonna put that out there. All right.
It didn't help with any of the controversies either with that.
No,
following up with that.
No, it did not. All right. So going into my 10, like I said, I haven't done this in a while where there's an awards bait movie that everybody like loves and is raving about. But I think there's a little bit more validation to me having this entry on my list than I originally thought there was going to be, because a lot more people came out because this was one of those movies where it was getting really, really rave reviews at festivals. And then as soon as it came out, people were really mixed to not liking it. And at one point, it seemed like this guy was a lock for Best Director. And now, I'm not so sure. My number 10 is Nickel Boys. I was going into this movie, again, I was fully expecting another movie that was going to be about this mass tragedy that happened, about, once again, a story that I was not even aware of. The fact that in the 50s and 60s, these black kids were arrested on trumped-up charges and then sent to basically the equivalent of like a combination of something between a concentration camp and a corrective camp, where essentially they would, be literally like systematically like forced to work until they were seen of no more use and then brutally murdered. And then it wasn't until decades later that these mass graves would be discovered. That's an interesting, really, really interesting story. And to my knowledge, the way that I understand is that the director, Ramel Ross, is a college professor who directed this really well-received documentary that then Brad Pitt's production company contacted him in order to direct this movie. And while all of that sounds like the ingredients for a really, really good movie, the end result, where he makes the questionable choice to have the movie shot in first-person perspective, where you're in the main character's shoes, seeing everything from their point of view, it creates a really jarring experience that's very, very difficult to connect with. Not to mention the fact that this is another 2-hour and 20-minute long movie that should only have been an hour and a half to an hour, 50, I would say at most. So you've got intersperses all of this footage of different documentaries and also clips from this Sidney Poitier classic movie that I'm currently forgetting the name of. And the movie really is a jumbled mess to begin with. The actual story is so interspersed. It ends up coming off more like a Terrence Malick movie, who is another director that I cannot fucking stand at all. He's one that people absolutely love, and I just am not a fan of it. And it's another movie, like Conclave, that ends with this stupid, gimme, gotcha ending, where the movie is flashing back and forth between, you're following the two kids while they're in the camp, and then you're flashing forward to one of them as an adult, portrayed by Daveed Diggs, and you're assuming that it's the one, and then the other one got killed. And the twist at the end, spoiler, I guess, is that, the one kid died, and the other kid took his name to honor his memory. And I'm like, okay, but why did that have to be a twist? Like, and then you like the whole movie right there just building up to it. Like, you could have just saved all of that for the end, and it honestly would have had more of an emotional impact if you hadn't saved that for a gotcha twist. But you making that like this big gotcha moment is like, it detracts. So basically the way that I can best sum this up is that it's a movie that should have been great, that is heavily weighed down by the technical and stylistic choices and writing choices as well. So that's why this goes on here. My number 9, again, a follow-up to 2 movies that I really, really loved that came out in 2022, X and Pearl, both of which were fantastic throwbacks and homages to both 70s style exploitation and then 1930s Technicolor filmmaking. And so naturally going into it, this movie was doing more of a giallo approach, like a 70s into early 80s approach, and Maxine was one of the biggest letdowns of the year. I was having an absolute blast with this movie for the first couple thirds. It's had the biggest cast that Ty West had assembled. You got Bobby Cannavale, Michelle Monaghan, Giancarlo Esposito, Kevin Bacon played this really sleazy private investigator. And again, another movie that ends with one of the dumbest gotcha moment out of nowhere things that tries to connect the trilogy together, but it just doesn't. Again, the movie's biggest problem is that it's going back and forth to be really ambiguous as far as being like, okay, is Maxine the killer here? And then she isn't, and they try to tie it all together where it's like, oh, it's everything that she would try to do to be a star. It doesn't work, ultimately, and it's really kind of a letdown, especially building off of Ty West's previous really good installments. My number 8, Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. A movie, again, an anime take on Lord of the Rings. How did they possibly screw this up? This should have been the easiest fucking movie to nail. And especially since that, like, of all the, I guess, popcorn franchises that would be really well done in anime styling, Lord of the Rings should have been really, really easy to get. And not only was this movie boring, not only was this movie trite, not only was this movie too long for an only 2-hour-long animated movie, the battle sequences are really boring, the plot's really predictable, the character of Helm Hammerhand, who I understand from Tolkien lore is a really, really cool character. They definitely screwed that up. Also, you have Brian Cox voicing a Lord of the Rings character. Again, this is just one of those things where it's like, how did they screw this up? I can only assume that they wrote this script by AI, and that this was a studio-mandated film. It's the only explanation, and yeah, just really, really let down by it. My number 7, Y2K. This movie should have been, like, the easiest thing to nail. And instead, Kyle Mooney was basically making his version of a Superbad ripoff that relied on really, really dumb gimmicks, had all the best bits in the trailer, and also relied on probably the worst cast of 3, like, young preteens ever, with Jaden Martell, Julian Dennison, and Rachel Zegler. 3 people who, for the most part, can't act, are not funny or charming or clever in any way, and have little to no chemistry. They try to pull a really big gotcha moment at the halfway through by having one of those 3 characters killed off halfway through. You can figure it out if you've seen the trailers. And yeah, the rest of the movie just relies on really dumb gags, just inconsistent kills. Like, do the robots want to kill us? Do they want to enslave us? They try to put it in an Elon Musk microchip. It ends on some really dumb gags. It feels like a movie that's made by American High, which is the studio that was basically trying to make its bones on Superbad ripoffs, circa 2019 early through the pandemic, and none of them were good. They did that movie The Binge that came out on Hulu with Vince Vaughn, and yeah, none of those movies were good. Yeah, they only made one good movie, and that was the Big Time Adolescence movie, because that was like a precursor to King of Staten Island when that came out. And my number 6, this is probably a movie that's going to make a couple of different people's lists. I actually was probably the only person that liked Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, when that came out in December of 2023. Needless to say, Netflix trusting Zack Snyder was not a good choice at all. Like I said, because just listen, when he made, listen, I understand the studio, like, screwing him and him wanting to do the director's cuts for Batman vs. Superman and Justice League. I get it. But when you are with Netflix and you have the option to make it rated R, and then you say, no, I'm going to put out a PG-13 cut first, and then I'm going to put out a rated R cut, but then your PG-13 cut is so bad that you can't even have people, like, even wanting or motivated to watch your 3.5-hour and 4-hour long R-rated director's cuts. Like, I don't know what he's smoking, but he is really drinking his own Kool-Aid after the Snyder fans just emboldened him. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. This is a 2-hour-long battle sequence that results in deaths of characters that you have completely forgotten about from the last couple of months, and characters who you really weren't that invested in to begin with. And this movie tries to fool you into thinking that it's going to get a Part 3, which will never happen. I don't know what Zack Snyder's next movie is. If you ask me, I think that he's officially worn out all of his goodwill that he built up from the Snyder cause. So yeah, it wasn't good. I was really trying to give him faith, and then I was about an hour into this movie, and I'm like, oh man, I've got an hour to go. This is tough. So yeah, that's my 10 through 6. Like I said, some controversial choices on there for sure, but just to run it through it again, Max 10 through 6 is Jackpot, Killer's Game, The Crow, Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, and Imaginary. Kristen's 10 through 6 is Jackpot, The Deliverance, Killer Heat, Night Swim, and Dear Santa. Luke's 10 through 6 is Roadhouse, Longlegs, Kung Fu Panda 4, Immaculate, and Love Lies Bleeding. And my 10 through 6, Nickel Boys, Maxine, Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, Y2K, and Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. As if that should have, you know, it's funny because like I'm saying this year that like I'm hoping that this is the year where parts 1s and 2s go away officially. It's kind of funny how like how I think this is the movie that we're basically like, yeah, we're not doing parts 1 and 2s anymore. This went straight to Netflix. That should tell you everything you need to know. All right, Matt, going back to you. You're 5 through 2. What have you got?
I laughed, muted, because there's no fucking way you have Rebel Moon number 6. That's not number 5. Dude, there is like no way. I'm so Snyder fans come after me. I'm all ready for the smoke, you know. I don't care. I pack heat. This whole thing of like, well, if the first movie's not good, I'll just do my director's cut. Like, it's getting old, Zach. Like, I'm surprised he didn't do I have Army of the Dead cut that I gotta release, and it's just like I'm sick
and that still hasn't come out.
No, I'm so sick of this gimmick of like, oh, well, I'll just release this 3-hour cut of a film. And it's like, I didn't think the first Rebel Moon was like terrible. Like other people thought. I thought it was just boring. I was like, oh, rated R Star Wars. All right, cool. But it's like, this one's just like a big, like, I'm just going to do what I do. And of course the Snyder boys are going to defend it. And they're having a freaking heat stroke right now because of the Superman movie. And it's like, it's so boring. There's nothing happens in this movie until like the last 45 minutes. I think Rebel Moon is very, very bad. And that's why
it's another movie that's an hour long, but because of all the slow-mo in it, it's blown up to 2 hours because literally half this movie is just slow-mo action sequences.
I agree. And it's like, damn it, Snyder, how dare you? But number 4, I have a film that wasn't on a lot of people's list. I'm going to say The Strangers Chapter 1. So if you've seen my channel, you've known I have a very love-hate relationship with The Strangers. Kristen's has seen it, so we've covered the films. At least I don't like the first Strangers movies. I do respect its horror elements. The second one is so bad it's good because it's like a big like why Christina Hendricks is in it, so that's an A+. But this one was just like, you know what we need? We need a trilogy. We need to reboot The Strangers. Who was begging for that Strangers reboot? And apparently no one was, because they were not cooking with this. It's like, this is pretty much a rehash of the first film, but it's like, we're getting to know how the Strangers become the Strangers. And then they shot both of the sequels at the same time. So it's like, what are we doing? So it's like, and this one did not do well. And I don't know, the second one was supposed to come out in December, but I think they moved it to this year. So the part 2 and 3 are coming out this year. So I have no idea what they're going to do for this movie. I know the actress they have in this film, I forgot her name off the top of my head. She's in the new 2 movies, so they're like, oh, theories are like, if you're coming up with Strangers theories, man, go outside. Just legit, please go outside. Like, this is not for you. This is not for you at all. Jesus Christ. If I could go down my list real quick. So number 3, I was laughing because my number 3 is Harold and the Purple Crayon.
There you go.
This film is, I did research to this. I deep dive. Originally, this film was in the production when they did Where the Wild Things Are in 2009, 2010. So if this film was slated to come out back then, I could understand because that was during the time of the nostalgia period for children's books. But someone said this was the movie that got Zachary Levi to vote for Trump, and it made me laugh to this day because it broke him because the report came out that he was disappointed with Shazam not doing well to be like the big star he wanted to be for The Rock. And you do Harold the Purple Crayon. It is creepy. You're an adult kidnapping children to go play in your mystery land, which is creepy as well too. But you know, Chris Andrews would probably get a involved in this. And my number 2. Now, this movie was too many people's high list. I'm like, guys, stop it. This movie sucks. It's Madam Web, dude. Madam Web is
number 2.
Yes, it is number 2. I'll tell you what the number 1. It was a mixed match of what I wanted, but I had to think of like which one did I enjoy a little bit more, and that's Madam Web, because Madam Web, I enjoy it for the post production because Dakota Johnson went on a press tour pretty much just saying, "Screw you, Sony. I don't need to do this shit. My dad's Ron Johnson. I got any movie I want. I'm gonna just do indie movies for the next 5 years and everything." But Dakota Johnson had like the best press tour. Sydney Sweeney thought this was the MCU. That's even more hilarious. So that was funny as hell. And then everything with this film was broken. And then with the word coming out, they said, "Yeah, we can use Spider-Man. We just didn't choose to." It's like, damn, they're just making shit movies for the love of the game. That's respect, Sony. And Madam Web is truly horrific. I knew that, like, it's not even enjoyably bad like Morbius. Like with Morbius, it is funny bad. Madam Web is just a nightmare of like, okay, we're gonna make this movie and we're just not gonna have fun with it. And it's just like it teases movies we're never gonna see. I don't think it was like, man, I really gotta see Sydney Sweeney in that skin tight suit in the after credit scene. Like, I really gotta watch that. I gotta really see this origin story of this villain who is dressed like a Spider-Man, but Spider-Man doesn't exist because Mary Jane and Ben are born with this baby. We can't say it's Peter Parker because we don't want to. It's just like a big confusing mess, and it's just like, and then having Madam Web is this older lady. Why do we have 30-year-old Dakota Johnson playing someone who's supposed to be elderly lady? And like they made her a dick, which is kind of accurate to Madam Web's character because she's neutral, but she just makes sure that everything works in the Spider-Verse, and they didn't really explore that. Mike Epps is the best part of the movie for the 5 minutes. He said, "Yeah, Madam Web sucks."
Mike Epps is usually pops up for like 5 minutes and is like the best part of the movie. That
I'm
he's
glad.
In. Cue Resident Evil Apocalypse, which I'm sorry, that is people say that that's the best Resident Evil movie, and I'm like, if that's the best Resident Evil movie, then wow, this franchise really fucking sucks. Yeah, I was about to say, Mac, I believe you were the one that coined the term, this is the anti-movie of our time, which is a phrase that will live in infamy, that is going to forever be burned into my memory. All right, Kristen, going over to you, your 5 through 2.
My 5 through 2. First up, we got Red One, which is the Chris Evans, Dwayne Johnson, Lucy Liu, and J.K. Simmons film. Another Christmas film that is doomed to come on my list. A lot of Christmas films I realize have been coming up in my top 10 for the last couple of years now. So the streaming Christmas films don't ultimately work, and this is one of the Christmas films that doesn't work. This had the nerve too because of the big budget problems it had, the controversies that it had with Dwayne Johnson. This should have never been in theaters. There is a reason why it's doing well now on streaming, and it's not good. From what I find to be really disappointing from J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus. I love him as Santa Claus, but the fact that they barely use him in this film is so sad. He's just sleeping most of the time in this film if you watch it. Did anybody see it here?
Nope.
I saw it. You know.
Yeah, Mac. Yeah, he sleeps the entire time in the performance. Like he's actually like sleeping. His character's like under a spell.
J.K. Simmons is like in the movie for 5 minutes as talking, but then like the retired time is just the chick from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the new one, holding him hostage.
What's her name? Kieran Shipka, yeah.
Yeah, like he's just trapped and was like, man, that must be an expensive nap. It was like if I could cast a movie as an A-list actor, I could sleep the entire thing. Sign me the fuck up.
And play Santa. Even worse. And then so bad with CGI, it's not good. I can't believe that this movie also had the popcorn buckets that it had too. This movie really went after to get that audience in for Dwayne Johnson, and I'm waiting for the day where Dwayne Johnson actually plays a bad guy and actually loses, even though that will never happen.
Never gonna happen.
Never ever happen. Coming in.
I was gonna say real quick, do you guys remember like years ago when everyone was getting amped up for J.K. Simmons to play J. Jonah Jameson in Batman vs. Superman, and it's really because he was getting in shape for this movie?
Oh no, it was Commissioner Gordon, not J. Jonah Jameson.
Sorry, Commissioner Gordon. Wow. I'm getting my comic book terminology screwed up. Thank you, Mac. But yeah, for Commissioner Gordon. But it was working out for this movie. And this movie came out this past year. 6 years after Batman versus Superman. I just had to point that out because that's still like a really, really funny
8 years.
tidbit. Oh, fuck, you're right. 8 years. Holy shit. Wow, I can't do math at all. Thank you, Luke. Oh my God, what would I do without you? All right, Kristen, you're number 4.
Number 4 is a movie nobody has heard of. This was a film that was released overseas. I think you can watch this film on the internet somewhere, or you can rent it somewhere. I don't know. But this was a movie that was sent to me. This movie has 2 different titles. I don't know why. It's an animated film, and it's an independent animated film. And I'm only including it because it had the nerve to be released overseas in a theater where but this movie is called Gracie and Pedro. I'm going to give you both titles. You decide which one you would like to go with. Gracie and Pedro heads to the rescue. You can look this up. This is a real movie. And that's the first one. And then the other title is Gracie and Pedro Mission Impossible. You decide which title you want to go with. Both will come up on Google, even if you search it. I kid you not.
That's what we're gonna go. That's what we're gonna go with right there. Hopefully we don't get copyrighted for that one.
But Gracie and Pedro, this movie stars Susan Sarandon, Bill Nighy, Brooke Shields, Danny Trejo, Alicia Silverstone, and oh my god, this movie is so bad with its animation. I wanted at least for a studio or an independent studio to try their best. They phoned it in. And the worst part is the main characters, Gracie and Pedro, are just so unlikable, especially Pedro, the stupid cat. I can't even tell you how stupid the cat is. And then this movie has the nerve to put in 2 mice that sing and then also get a post-credit scene that should have never happened. And I feel really bad putting it on my list, but then I don't, because they could have tried really, really hard with this film. But everybody in the cast, they were just paid. They were like a quick 5-minute voiceover cameo. Sign me up. This cost them probably less than 2 hours to be in the studio. And I don't know what the audience turnout was for this film, but nobody saw it.
Yeah, this is a movie again that I've never heard of, and this
nobody heard of it, and this was just sent to me.
Really, like one of those like terrible kids movies, like one of those movies that like it's not real, like Hotel for Dogs or one of those ones. But it's
Mac,
like,
there was a reason why we didn't review this on the podcast. There was a reason why we didn't review this. I was going to send this to you, and I was like, I need to see how bad this is, and it was like, we're not talking about this.
I don't even recall. This sounds like a money laundering scheme.
It probably was. It probably was. Kristen, you're number 3.
My number 3, we don't have to get that deep into it, but it's The Crow. Who cares? It's not that good. Rupert Sanders. What in the world, Rupert Sanders? We had Ghost in the Shell that wasn't just good. Now we have The Crow that really wanted to try really, really hard. And Bill Skarsgård, thank God, at least he came back stronger than ever with Nosferatu. But this film, that really puts a sour taste in my mouth as I say The Crow, the newer one. It's not good. FK Twigs, whether you can say she can act or not, I think she's just okay. Bill Skarsgård, I do think he tries his best. The way they made him look like a newer version of Jared Leto's, version of the Joker, what we saw back in 2016. You can look at both characters. They look very, very similar in terms of their appearance. There's and then nobody saw it. That's okay. Box office failure. Sony, what'd you do here? We don't know, but you shouldn't have made a Crow remake.
Wait, did the director really do the 2017 Ghost in the Shell movie?
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Holy
he did.
shit! I knew it. Oh my god! I knew that was familiar. I remember. Oh, that makes so much sense.
He took so much time in between direct
man.
Ghost in the Shell than to work on The Crow.
Rupert Sanders, great track record right
and
there.
Remember, he was the director who also did Snow White and the Huntsman.
That's right. And
had his affair with Kristen Stewart. And I was like, this man is never going away.
Great.
This man is never going away.
Wow. So we've just been ruining movies for a solid decade now. That's crazy. And your number 2.
Oh, my number 2. I forgot. Nobody saw this film. This is a film you can only find on streaming. And it dares to be like book smart. It dares. And it's called Prom Dates.
Oh, I think I know this one.
This is released by American High, which I was going to say, you brought up American High. And they did direct, put together, Big Time Adolescence, which starred Pete Davidson. And
their only good movie.
And then I did think there's another movie they released called The Ultimate Playlist of Noise. I think that one is pretty solid. And then the last film I saw them that they released was Crushed with Aaliyah Carvalho, which was the last film I saw. But Prom Dates, I was like, this just popped up randomly. Let me see this. And it was so, so bad. I never liked 2 teenagers this most, like for a horror, not horror. You could say it's a horror because the tragedy, I had to sit through it. For comedy, lowbrow teen comedy that really strived itself to be a streaming classic. You can't make a streaming classic given what I had to witness. There's like these bro cringy jokes. They get into stupid shenanigans. I forgot this movie was even released until like I was making my top 10 list, and I was like, oh, what's going to be my number 1 or number 2? This is my number 2 pick. It was really, really bad. And Julia Lister's a like up and coming like Broadway star. She was in the High School Musical, the series. She has really great talent. I don't know what caused her to be in this film. And then also we have like cameos from big celebrities, like, you know, Chelsea Handler appears in this film. And I don't think Chelsea Handler can act. She's a better stand-up comedian than she is an actress. So, yeah, this is not a good film. I don't know what American High is doing with all their films. They have a Rolling Loud movie coming out, and I can see it right here on the picture. They have Owen Wilson as a hype man. God only knows what that movie is going to entail. So,
Yeah, as somebody who has some insight into American High, I could say that their priorities definitely changed after COVID. They were like really adamant about like making like actual like somewhat movies of substance. While I was, because all those movies that I saw that you mentioned, Big Time Adolescence, The Binge, they all made those while I was in college up there because they're based out of Syracuse. And then after COVID, they were just like, okay, we're just gonna try and churn these movies out as fast as possible, for as cheap as possible, and none of them have been good. None of them have been good, and none of them have been streaming successfuls. I will say they need to rethink their model, their formula, and just figure out I do love the fact that they have their office and their set as a old high school. I think that's very cool, very creative, and that helps build a lot of like, you know, but that's all they've got going
stuff.
for them.
But that's all they have, and they need to reevaluate what they're doing as a business. I think
I should have stayed in the script reading program that I was enrolled in, because I was like okaying and like poo-pooing like certain scripts that I thought were bad. I should have stayed in maybe. So I partially blame that one on myself. That one might be on me, guys. Moving over to you, Luke. What is your 5 through 2?
So my number 5, as a massive Kingsman fan, Argyle was a great disappointment. We had a great podcast episode about it about a year ago. Henry Cavill is like barely even in it, so there's no Agent Argyle. But then maybe at the end there is an Agent Argyle. So that sequel will never see the light of day. It might be in the same universe as Kingsman. There's a bit of a question mark there, but whatever. Big like $300 million down the drain for Apple. And number 4, I have the Beekeeper, a solid Jason Statham action movie, but I did not enjoy it. If I rewatch it, I might think of it higher. It was just another Jason Statham type movie, and David Ayer being the director, I believe. Now he's got A Working Man coming out at some point, which probably going to be the same thing. At number 3, I have a Joker Fully a Doo-Doo. I knew it wasn't going to be great, but I thought, hey, you know, it's a musical. Maybe I'll enjoy the musical sequences. And then I didn't really even enjoy those. Like, oh, we're going to build a mountain and repeat that 17 times. You know, what a bad influence Joker is on society. He's tap dancing on stage. Like, why are we letting the youth see this type thing? But no, it's just, what was this? Like, he was a Joker, then he wasn't the Joker. Like, at number 2, I have Rebel Moon. What's it called? The Scar Giver. I watched this. Netflix has this feature where you can minimize the screen into a little corner. That's how I watched it on my laptop while I was doing something else, because I think that's the only way you can watch this. Because like every now and then you peek over, oh, there's a slow-mo action scene happening. Doing my homework, whatever. 10 minutes later, it's still the same scene. And you can't really tell it apart. Zack Snyder's Star Wars was not something I particularly enjoyed. We talked about this, Dom. Like, he should have been a cinematographer. Like, his movies look great, but what's in them isn't as much. And we'll leave number 1 for the wraparound.
Well, what do I can't. I should have used that, damn it.
That's pretty good. Luke always has the great singers. Once again, like I said, you all are wrong. Joker Fully a Do is a masterpiece, but whatever. I will die on that hill. All right, going into my 5 through 2. So, like I said, the disappointments specifically from A24, my favorite indie studio, just keep coming, because man, this was a movie that hyped itself up. They're like, yeah, this movie is going to be the takedown of Trump. This movie's going to show, like, yeah, what dystopia, what America's going to look like under the next Trump presidency if this happens. This is one of a couple, like, attempted, like, cautionary against Trump pieces that just absolutely failed miserably. And coming from Alex Garland, I would have hoped that it would have been better. Because he's one of my favorite filmmakers. I was setting you up for something completely different. That's actually really funny. Civil War. The movie where nothing happened, literally. Nothing happened for this whole movie. Like, it's Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spaney, and Stephen McKinley Henderson. So that's just half of Devs right there, which is a very, very good miniseries that I recommend everybody watches. Just going across the country to try and get a last quote from the dictator president, played by Nick Offerman, before he's unceremoniously killed by the forces of California and Texas working together. That immediately told me that this movie was made by a Brit. Because I'm like, in no universe are those two states allying against...
And Florida. Don't forget Florida.
And Florida. No, I thought Florida was like its own independent nation, which I'm like, okay, that tracks, but...
Mac, you forget the Florida Alliance?
Yeah, the Florida Alliance. Exactly.
Listen, sorry. No, you go ahead, Dad.
I was just going to say, this movie had one good sequence, which they also told you in the trailer, which was the Jesse Plemons scene. And yeah, like I said, this is literally like a road movie that was supposed to be like about the importance of journalists, except I'm like, but what did they do? Like, what did they do that was so important in this movie? You know, like, okay, they got the last word, and then they just let the soldiers kill them. I'm like, oh, so journalistic integrity, I guess, doesn't matter when it comes to mass dictators. It's like, so what was the point of this whole thing? Like, I legitimately question, like, what the point of this whole movie was, you know? At the very least, Love Lies Bleeding had, like, something going for it. This movie, like, actively aggravated me. And the fact that there were, like, people that were still, like, online trying to defend it, like, oh, just angered me. And I'm like, Alex Garland, I expect better of you. Number 4, a movie that, again, this is another one of those movies that I never would have watched, except that my mom really wanted to watch it. And then I watched it, and I'm like, oh, so Anne Hathaway's the next on the list of older women that are hooking up with younger guys and making that a thing. And I love Anne Hathaway, but man, I'm questioning her film choices right now. The Idea of You. I understand that this is a very well-beloved book. Kristen, you would probably have more insight into it than me.
Yes, Harry Styles fan fiction. I didn't think this was as bad, but the fact that we have not one, but 3 movies coming out where an older woman is with a younger man.
Yeah, this
and 2 of them start with Nicole Kidman.
Yep, yeah. This is a trend that should have stayed in 2021. I still have to watch Baby Girl, but I understood that was much better because that's like into, you know, the whole thing of like, oh, it's a kink. This is like no, we're trying to treat this as mainstream, and I'm like, no. Nicholas Galitzin, man, he is on a hot streak, or should I say a bottom streak? Ayo, with last year's Bottoms, and which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, and now this, and now he's gonna be He-Man. Talk about failing upwards. Number 3, the movie that was probably the best time that I had in the theater all year, even though it had to be for one of the worst movies that I've ever seen. Gladiator 2, Ridley Scott, you need to hang it up. You need to hang it up. I'm sorry. This movie was not good. It never should have been made. I questioned the movie's existence in the first place, but I'm like, all right, this has Paul Mescal and Denzel Washington. Pedro Pascal's cast and contractually obliged to be in everything now. And it's funny because I was actually listening to some YouTubers yesterday, and they have a theory as to why he's cast in everything. And the theory is that he's just white-looking enough, but just Hispanic enough to check off, you know, the quotas that they need, which I'm like, wow, that is so true. It explains so much. But yeah, this movie was a movie that, again, of all of the bad legacy sequels that we've gotten recently, was the one that had the most promise as far as, okay, this could have actually been good and actually had some interesting dramatic tension. And then just took all the dramatic tension and just completely threw it out the window. You have Denzel just Denzeling it up. Again, they should tell you that this movie is so bad that people were sure that Denzel was going to get an Oscar nomination for this, and now that is not happening. I can tell you right now. Yeah, like I said, it was a movie that was so bad that me and my friend literally just talked our way through the whole movie and literally made somebody get up and walk out and not come back. That's how bad this movie was. Yeah. And my number 2, Luke, you already mentioned it, so I'm not going to waste too much more time on it. Argyle, the first new movie that I saw this year that pretty much set the tone and trend for this year. This is a movie that Matthew Vaughn tried to make in the style of Kingsman instead of just making more, you know, mainstream set Kingsman movies, but I don't even know if she should do that because there hasn't been a good Kingsman movie since the first one. And yeah, this was a movie that was basically a whole bait and switch where the movie is setting you up for this awesome Henry Cavill spy thriller, but then it turns out, no, it's just Bryce Dallas Howard, who's an author, but who also is a spy. And then Catherine O'Hara and Bryan Cranston Bryan Cranston is set up as the bad guy, but then it's like, oh, they're her parents, but not. And then it's like, oh, she's the real Agent Argyle. Henry Cavill is a fictional character that she came up with. But then in the end, it's like, no, Henry Cavill is a real guy and may also be in the Kingsman. This movie has no fucking clue what it wants to do. And Matthew Vaughn, you are seriously making me question your track record, because after one of the best track records across the 2000s to 2010s since Kingsman, man, it has just been failing and falling on his ass over and over and over again. And this was my number one for a long time, but then I remembered that there was a movie that I saw at an early screening in 2023 that was so bad that it somehow made my number one of this year, because it officially came out this year. But I'll save that for the number one choices. So, once again, just to rattle this off: Max 5 through 2, Rebel Moon, The Scargiver, The Strangers, Chapter 1, Harold and the Purple Crayon, and the infamous anti-movie of our time, Madam Web. Kristen's 5 through 2, Red 1, Grace and Pedro, Pets to the Rescue, also known as Grace and Pedro Mission Impossible, The Crow, and Prom Dates. Luke's 5 through 2 is Argyle, The Beekeeper, Joker Folie à Deux, and Rebel Moon, The Scargiver. And my 5 through 2 is Civil War, The Idea of You, Gladiator 2, and Argyle. So, moving on to it. Number 1, the top of the doo-doo pile, the absolute worst of the worst that 2024 had to offer. Max, starting with you, what is your number 1 worst movie of 2024?
So I said this in my video. We are in a golden age of video game adaptations. We are in like a period where we're not getting the Mortal Kombat Annihilations. We're not getting the Dead or Alive. We're not getting the Postals. We're not getting Assassin's Creed. We're getting top tier adaptations. I don't know, whatever the two ones is. But guys, what the fuck are we doing with Borderlands? Like, I'm going to tell you this right here. I have never been a Borderlands fan. I know when you go into any video game adaptation, they're like, oh, well, it's not the game, it's the movie, and the movie's pretty good. That's why we all liked Uncharted, because Uncharted was a good action movie. Yay! Let me tell you guys, Uncharted sucks. Borderlands sucks. Borderlands is a case of wasted potential because, A, you have Eli Roth. I'm not going to say Eli Roth is the greatest director, but damn it, when you go to an Eli Roth movie, you know you're going to get blood and gore. Like, it's awesome. When this was clearly shown to be shot for rated R, but then they said, let's edit it down to PG-13 because Borderlands is not known for its cussing. It's known for its guns and action. So let's just cut that out and just make this a generic action movie with a terribly miscast cast. Like Kevin Hart as Roland. Roland is this big, brolic black dude. He's not this tiny, short guy. Like, it's... And then, like, Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina. Now, I have, like I said, I'm not a Borderlands fan, but I have dabbled in the world. I have friends that are Borderlands fans, so they always fact checked it. Tiny Tina is not supposed to be this fucking annoying. Ariana Greenblatt is so annoying in this movie. The only good Jack Black, he was fine as Claptrap, but they just should have gotten the original voice actor from the game to do it, which would have made sense. Like, they're like, oh, we're getting Jack Black. He had the power in Super Mario Brothers movie. Let's make him Claptrap. And then Kate Blanchett, just I didn't see her why she was Lilith, and Jamie Lee Curtis was cool in the movie. Like, I liked it. Gina Gershon made an appearance, which was like, okay, that's random. You know, she got some big assets, if you know what I mean. But like, this movie was just so bad. And to sum up my theater experience, there was 3 of us in the movie: my dad, myself, and another guy. 3 black dudes in a dark theater watching Borderlands on a Saturday night. There's no other way to just spin it. Borderlands is, I think, out of the 2020 so far, it's genuinely the worst video game movie I've seen this decade. And I hope Mortal Kombat 2 is better, because I didn't really like Mortal Kombat 1. Borderlands is by far the worst movie I saw this year. It fucking sucks.
Some big assets. Also, there's the fact that Eli Roth was fired,
Yes!
post-production.
Yes, it's like half the people's credits are gone for this movie. So it's like, this movie was in production hell for, I think, like 7 years. Because they went through a few different people, and then I think it's a controversy because a lot of the VFX artists got cut out of the credits. So it's just like, this movie was cursed from the start. You know, I was like, fuck this, I'm going to do Thanksgiving, which is a better film. And then, like, Borderlands is just like, it's sad, but at least, hey, Borderlands fans, look at the bright side. You got Borderlands 4 coming out this year.
Yeah.
This movie, I think it's funny, you know, like, even the fans were like, yeah, no, I ain't defending this. And, you know, I know it's like, oh, it's different from the video game. Like, even as the movie itself, it's just bad.
Yeah, this was not a good year for desert post-apocalyptic set video game adaptations. I'm sorry. I don't know how many of you guys saw Fallout on Amazon. Was not a fan of that either.
I like Fallout.
All. I did not like that at all. The only good part, dude, when Walton Goggins is your lead and he can't even save the show, that's, you know, you got a problem. You know you've got some issues. on your hands right here. What's it called? Kristen, going over to you. What is your number one?
All right. Mac brought it up earlier, and it's my number one. We had the nerve to do this on our podcast. We did a live recording of it with our friend Rod. We watched Madam Web. We reviewed this in theaters, and there's not much to say about it. The cast speaks for itself. The director speaks for itself. Sony even has the nerve. The CEO has to go, oh, it was just the critic. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. The audience is smart. They are aware of what they're putting their time, money, investment in. And they know from previous experience, they're not going to waste their time. They failed. It's Sony's fault. I'm not blaming anybody else from the director or the cast. Maybe Dakota Johnson, since she did really bad promotional stuff on this film. She needs to meet with her public relations team, or be like, hey, can you teach me how to talk and talk properly, how to sell my movie? No, she couldn't sell the movie. No, nothing in the film works. It's Sony's fault. Shame on Sony. And they got to make a comeback somehow, because given how 2024 worked out for them, it's not looking good for 2025. They got to figure out how to make them go up. So.
Yep. Madam Web. I was waiting to see whose number one that was going to be. I was shocked that it was Mac's number two, but given Mac your relationship with Borderlands, that tracks. Luke, your number one. Worst of the year. What have you got?
Listen, I've never in my life walked out of a movie in a theater. I seriously considered it for Megalopolis, because that is just. I'm watching this. I'm like, I don't love movies enough to understand any sort of meaning from this. To me, it was just 100% bullshit on the screen and through my ears. I'm like, whoa. Like, I think I fell asleep and I didn't really miss much. I've just blocked the experience out of my mind. I only remember that John Boyd said, "Oh, how do you like my boner?" And then he shot someone with a crossbow. Like, and that kind of sums it up. Like, you're wondering why no one wanted to finance this, and like here's why. Like, it's just complete nonsense for 2 hours, and it looks horrible. In the CGI terms, the dialogue is questionable. Like, go back to the club. Like, that's the one good thing that came out of this.
Greatest line of the year.
No.
Greatest movie line of the year. Wait, Luke,
you should have sold your freaking vineyard, man. Like, I'm good.
I still think the funniest part about this movie is that Coppola sunk $120 million of his own money. $120 million. Not even just that, but the fact that I don't know. I enjoyed it. I mentioned before that I'm like, yeah, I didn't have a so bad it's good experience this year. I was wrong. It was this movie. This was Coppola's Southland Tales, and I had a fucking blast, because I knew from the minute that you started that New York City was supposed to be New Rome, and Aubrey Plaza's character's name was Wow Platinum. I'm like, oh, this is nonsense. Like, and I just had an absolute blast with it. All right, so you guys have all been entertaining me a lot, and the audience, with some movies that nobody has ever watched. Well, I've got the ultimate one. This is a movie that A24 released that was so bad that nobody watched it. This movie was so bad that I saw it for free at an ERM early research thing in September of 2023. This is the movie that officially made me go, wait, I want my money back. Wait, no, I saw this movie for free. I want back the hour and 20 minutes that I wasted on this piece of shit. So, from Robert Eggers' brothers. That should already tell you everything you need to know. And starring Brandy, The Front Room. The number one worst movie, the movie that was so bad, I didn't even see it in the year of 2024. I saw it in the year of 2023. Brandy can't act. This movie is a wannabe Rosemary's Baby meets Hereditary, and it doesn't work on either sense. This movie is trying to be funny, but also scary, and fails on both counts. It can't tell if it wants to be like an unintentionally hilarious, or if it wants to be genuinely scary, and it's just failing miserably. Either way, it doesn't work. You've got poor what's her name, the actress who plays the witches in Macbeth, and Mrs. Fig in the Harry Potter movies, whose name
Hunter.
Catherine Hunter, thank you, as the mother-in-law from hell, but she's doing this weird, batshit, crazy Southern accent while also shitting herself throughout the movie. They have to like take care of her. Well, also, I'm like, how is this supposed to be a threatening villain? Like, you have to like, she can't even take care of herself. But then she also is trying to curse this child. Also, the way the movie ends, you don't even know like what actually happens with the curse. Like, okay, so she dies, but her ghost is still haunting them, and like then the mom dies, but you don't know what happened to the kid, and then the movie just ends, and it's like, oh, they're all in like pictures, like with the kid. I'm like, this movie doesn't even make sense. It can't even own up to its supposed scariness. This is one of the worst movies that I've ever seen.
It's so predictable, and then the fact that they had the nerve. I'm gonna jump in because I just reviewed this.
Please do.
They put the whole movie together in the trailer. You can tell because the where she's singing the song in the car. I was like waiting for that moment to happen. And Brandy sings the song that's like No Regrets, the big opera-ish Italian song, whatever you want to call it. She's singing that song at the very end of the film, and there's like certain shots you could tell that happened towards the end of the film, and then like I noticed a lot of the stuff you see at the beginning of the film is in the trailer that shows at the beginning of the film. Like, I will give Catherine Hunter credit. She is the mother from hell. You could see that. But this is like all the scare that doesn't include all the scary stuff. Like, I could watch her being like an obnoxious mother, but my God, nothing in this film is scary at all.
The freaking dinner scenes where they're like, oh, racist, you don't know what real racism is, to a black woman. I'm like, are you joking? Like, that was a lie that they actually wrote in the movie. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, this is too stupid even for me. I made the mistake of inviting a guy, a friend of mine, who I had only met like the week before, and we both were like, this movie was so bad. We saw this in the Times Square AMC. We had to go to the Applebee's for Jameson shots. You never want to go to Applebee's for Jameson shots after a movie. That's how bad this movie was.
That's bad.
Like I said, a movie so bad that I didn't even see it in the year of 2024, and it still made my number one.
It's on streaming now. That's how I watched it. I was like, nobody's going to. Nobody. There was a reason why nobody saw it, and it was only in theaters for like 2 weeks. Nobody cared. A24 had zero faith. They just stuck it in because I didn't hear of this film until like Maxine came out. Yep. And that's when they put out the trailer for
There's a reason why they tacked this in with their press release of all the rest of the movies that they were coming out with for the end of the year. They were like, we need to acquire Queer and the Brutalist because our false slate, literally, if not for A Different Man and the first hour of Heretic, they're like, oh man, our false slate is in trouble.
Robert Eggers, I don't even think is attached to it.
No, absolutely
And he
not.
went like this. He's like, I'm not associated.
No, because Robert Eggers probably, if the brothers actually like consulted him on it, which they clearly didn't, because hopefully he would have looked at this and been like, what the fuck is
like,
this?
What did you do?
Shit? Like, get this out of my face. Like, ugh.
You're my brothers. You should respect me more.
Again, like, so I did this thing with Chris where when we did our respective top 10 lists, I gave out, like I said, some awards, and I still distinctly remember when I reviewed Things Heard and Seen, the Amanda Seyfried movie that I was a background extra in that shot in my area. I was like, yeah, the worst movie that I was in. Also because that movie put me through hellish conditions on set in addition to being a piece of shit. But then you also, but yeah, so right now the front room gets the award for the worst movie of the year that I didn't even actually see in 2024. So that ultimately takes the cake. So like I said, this was fun. We had a blast. We roasted some movies. We recapped the worst of the year. Your Borderlands, your Madam Web. But I think that if anything, these entries are all meant to kind of say, yeah, we are ready to put 2024 behind us and fully embrace 2025. We're wrapping up the month next week with the best of list. We're doing best of movies next week. I'm doing that with Dustin and a returning face who has not been on the channel in quite some time, if not ever, actually. I think this might be his first time on the channel. And then we'll be wrapping it up. Kristen, you and me are doing top 10 best TV shows in 2 weeks with Anyolo Movie Blogs. We'll have him back on for that. And then we'll get started with our 2025 looking forward to slate with the Super Bowl trailer reactions. Luke, also you and I are coming back with the next episode of Talking Lost tomorrow. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Good episode.
There. Yes, very, very good episode. A very important episode as well in the entire canon of Lost as well. But we'll get to that. You guys will have to tune in tomorrow for that. So, guys, thank you once again for tuning in, for joining me for another top 10 list. It was an absolute blast to roast these absolute pieces of dog shit. It's good to know that Hollywood can still churn out some just absolutely terrible movies. I thought that those days were behind them, but we still have some actual, like, really, really bad movies. So, going around the table, Mac, thank you for joining us once again. Congratulations once again on getting hits, the latest in the YouTube circle. If there's one good thing that came out of this list, it was that announcement. So, where could the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Big thanks for having me on. It's so much fun. I always love doing it. Want to do it more this year with you if I can. You can find me on YouTube at Mac Movie Reviews, Instagram, same thing. TikTok, if it gets banned, if it not get banned, that is the question. You can find me on Mac Movie Reviews as well too, and then you can also find me on Letterboxd, same name too.
Absolutely. Kristen, delight to have you on as always. Where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
The good people can find me on my new YouTube channel. It's at Miss Filmingo. You can also follow me on all my socials at Miss Filmingo. I am on Blue Sky too. I am on Twitter if you want to follow me on Twitter. I'm on all the spaces. I'm all on the Twitters. My favorite line that Jack Quaid has ever said in a film. I'm on all the Twitters. I know all the Twitters. Yeah, you can follow me on there. And I'm also the co-host of the M&K Productions podcast. So I'm so happy for my friend Mac, who's getting married. I'm so excited. But yeah, tune into our show. Dom, we are excited to have you on in the new year. So
Yes.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course, always. Yeah, I'm excited to come back on. Like I said, I'm finished with school, so my schedule is finally fully cleared in order to come on to your guys' show. I always have a blast whenever I come on to the M&K podcast. Luke, my Talking Lost co-host, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They should follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube because top 10 is coming soon. It's not a great top 10, but like nothing's released here. Like The Brutalist, we're getting that in March, so I'm not going to see that anytime soon. There's some fun movies to
You
talk
got
about
Flow.
there.
You do have Flow.
Well, we made Flow.
You made Flow, and it won a Golden Globe, so I hope you're very proud.
They're really pushing that here. They're putting the cat on T-shirts, board games.
Hell yeah!
Yeah,
Not
they
even
are
Want to
the
send you
cat
some
one.
merch? I love that cat so much.
They're like,
We
they
cannot
are
escape
fucking-
the capitalism of even the silly cat. But yeah.
I love
All right.
that cat.
Excellent. All right, you can find me and Luke tomorrow on Talking Lost. As we are wrapping up season 1, you can find Mac and Kristen on the M&K Podcast Productions. And as always, people, you guys know where to find me. You, what's it called? At Movie Nerd Reviews, at Official Talking TV Podcast. You guys know all of the followings. And as always, people, watch more fucking movies. 12 seasons of a short film. We'll see you guys next week for Top 10 Best of 2024. We'll see you then.